having no gavel here tonight, nonetheless. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Municipality of Anchorage. Today is April the 2nd, 2015. I'm Baron Kucho, the chair, and Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Baron Kucho,
Here.
Dwayne Adams,
Here.
Robert Stewart.
Here.
Also present is Julia Tucker, Board Counsel, and Lisa Slister, Municipal Staff Support. We have a quorum.
Thank you. You have in front of you the agenda for tonight. Are there any additions, changes, deletions? Yes, Mr. Adams.
One thing, Burton, I would like to just have a brief discussion about what the fundamentals of disclosure are for this board. I have a sense for what they were for Planning and Zoning Commission, but just a real brief discussion.
Okay, well, it is my understanding that the disclosure requirements essentially, not essentially, but are exactly the same because
Okay.
they're prescribed by city ordinance. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
That satisfies it.
that satisfies your concern?
Sure.
Oh, very good. All right. Seeing no changes, additions, deletions, the agenda in front of you is what we will follow here. The first item is to approve the minutes of the February 26th meeting. My thinking is that since we just received this, that we should take this home, review it, and rather than take up time tonight, simply put it on the first item, or put it on the agenda for the next meeting as the first item, and we will consider those minutes then. Is that
I think
agreeable?
that makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of changes that we made in there and we need to go through and make sure that they're all in there.
Exactly. Mr. Adams, any thoughts on the matter? I know you weren't present, so it does not really affect you.
I have a lot of thoughts, but
You have a lot of thoughts,
There are
but you will keep
relevant
it
to
to
this
yourself?
case, though.
Okay.
They
all
could
right.
wander.
Okay. So, seeing no objection, the minutes of the February 26, 2015 meeting of the Board of Adjustment will be considered as the first item on the agenda of the following meeting. Any old business that we are aware of that we need to discuss? No? All right, new business, 6A. Here's the issue. It was brought to my attention that the record that we had previously received was incomplete. And initially I thought that we could handle it in such a manner that there wouldn't be a delay in the hearing of the appeal 2014-5, but it appears that this was only finalized in the last couple of days. So in all fairness, we need to give the parties the opportunity to supplement their briefs if they so wish. And you have seen the memorandum that has gone around, I hope. So I think just to keep matters straight, as our board counsel keeps a sharp eye on that sort of thing, I think the very first thing we need to do is we need to have a motion to supplement the record on appeal in case number 2014, and the planning, the memorandum of the planning department is part of the appeal record.
May I speak to that?
Once the motion is on the floor, we will, yes.
Move for incorporation of something.
Okay. And Mr. Stewart will second that. Okay. Ms. Tucker.
If you look at the memorandum that you've incorporated in your motion, which is a separate document from the supplement of the record, you'll see that it's a memorandum to the board that says, I regret to inform you that approximately 14 public comments were inadvertently omitted from the staff report provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So if it wasn't provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think it's difficult for you at this point to incorporate it into the record here, because as the Board of Adjustment you do not accept evidence. This is not an evidentiary hearing, so my comment would be to perhaps amend the motion so that you are bifurcating the supplement to the record from the memorandum.
I think that makes perfect sense. We cannot consider anything that is not part of the record, and the record is what transpired before P&Z. And since this was never part of the record that was part of the P&Z proceedings, I think this is correct. Any discussions, any thoughts on that? Mr. Stewart?
So, how does council recommend that we add this to the record then, unless it goes back and
Wait,
forth?
so this is not this.
Two
So
separate
this, all of the things in this pink folder were discussed and are indicated in the transcript. That's how I recognize that there were omissions, because when I was reading the transcript, I went to try and find the areas, and since these first two, SR1 and SR2, were in black and white in our folder, I couldn't identify the areas that were being testified to about being in highlighted yellow. In the next document, every other page of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes were inadvertently in your record, not copied. They're part of the record. They were before the Planning and Zoning Commission, but when it went to be copied for purposes of being reproduced for this board, it was probably a 2-page document and only the odd pages were copied. So we had 1, 3, 5, and unfortunately, in this appeal, the critical pages that actually discuss the case were even number pages, and so they were omitted. So you'll see in the brief of the appellant says that it wasn't addressed in the minutes. The minutes don't reflect the discussion. There's a cryptic remark that says one word. Well, that's right, because the page before it didn't have it. So you have the full minutes in here. Again, those were before the Planning and Zoning Commission. They're part of the record. Then the second set of things are photographs that a person who testified at the Planning and Zoning Commission brought photographs, and this is in the transcript. And she says that the photographs that the petitioner brought and showed of the neighborhood made it look very industrial, and since part of their complaint was the view shed, and that's part of what's properly in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, that she wanted these photographs entered into the record, but they weren't there. I read the transcript, I marked them, I went back and forth through all the pages, and they just weren't copied for your record. But anytime that you have testimony that specifically talks about things, those things are filed with the board there, which the testimony showed in 2 places that she had specifically gotten the commissioner, the Planning and Zoning Commission to say, okay, give the photos here, and her whole testimony was about these photos, then those are supposed to come here. And what we learned was that there was that in front of the P&Z, the record that goes in front of the P&Z, like these color things, they're all given to the P&Z in color. But when the staff makes the documents for this board, they copy the staff's report, which is black and white. And so you don't have in front of you the things that they had. In this case, you didn't have the color. The commissioners had the color. In this one, you didn't have all 14 pages. The commission did. And in this one, they circulated these photos. They were made part of the record. They didn't ever get to you, and yet there's testimony about all that. So that's here. So it seems to me that this document is appropriate for supplementing the record, and that's what I would recommend that you do. And then Bernd may
Okay.
address part of that too.
All right, So having heard that, Mr. Adams, you are the one who made the motion. I would suggest a friendly amendment to delete the memorandum from the supplement,
And
from supplementing the
so
record.
moved that the memorandum dated April 1, 2015 from Jerry T. Weaver, or from Eric McConnell, actually, be deleted from the supplementary package.
Okay, Mr. Stewart, is that agreeable, please?
Second, yes.
All right. Any further discussions regarding the motion as it now reads? Seeing none, please vote.
Baron Gutschall,
Yes.
Robert Stewart,
Yes.
Dwayne Adams.
Yes.
All right, now we come to the second portion of
Can we
this
give
affair.
this to you so we don't inadvertently?
Well, that's
Well, I
okay.
think that
That's.
The chair will talk about that.
I, you know, it is troubling that this was never presented to P and Z because these comments are important. They should have been considered by P and Z. I'm not sure what we can do as an appeal board right now, other than send the whole thing back, but I don't think that makes any sense. Do you have, Ms. Tucker, do you have any suggestion here?
Well,
How to handle this?
In my review of the briefs and the transcript and the record as much as we had it, and the code, I will tell you that I believe that there was a misinterpretation of code. That this tower is subject to a conditional use, as was briefed by both parties and acknowledged by both parties and staff, but that there's a section of code that would apply to a site plan review by staff if this hadn't been subject, because of its peculiarities, to conditional use. And that staff piece, that administrative determination, should have never gone before the Planning and Zoning Commission in addition or as a secondary thing to the conditional use, that the conditional use should have been judged on its merits and not had this tag-along. And that in dealing with that particular tag-along piece, I think that it's going to be appropriate for the Board of Adjustment to do a remand.
Well, I'm not prepared to do that right now, I
No.
must tell you, and I don't think we should discuss the case on the merits any further. The only issue is really what to do with the memorandum. It is clear that it's not part of the record, and as we consider the case, the appeal, on the date that is to be established, this packet will not be part of it. I don't think there's any reason to suddenly run it through the shredder or anything of that sort. It is simply a fact that this is not part of the appeal packet, and I think we will simply leave it at that. It does, however, raise a much more serious issue in my mind, and that is, this case now has presented two problems from the planning department, and somebody needs to pay some attention to this, and I hope Mr. Weaver, the director of the department, is aware of the fact that there seems to be some problem in his department in completing documents, first of all for P&Z hearings, and secondly for the next body, and that is us. So I think there needs to be some discussion that needs to be had with Mr. Weaver to bring this, to alert him to these things, if he is not already aware of it. So, other than that, I simply suggest that we put the memorandum aside, and we will simply deal with whatever issues Ms. Tucker has raised, that we will simply bring those up when we consider the appeal, that this is really not appropriate right now to discuss. Yes, sir, Mr. Adams.
So I have a question here. This is salient information that, in accordance with procedures and Title 21 requirements, should have been part of that record. So they've made a decision. Now, we aren't here to discuss that case right now, but had this been included and had the appellant and the appellees been aware of this, perhaps the course, we can't guess that, but perhaps the course they took and the basis of the appeal may very well have changed. And we aren't in a position to make that decision right now. So my question is, not knowing that, but knowing that there was a discrepancy between the procedures that should have been followed and weren't, does this need to then be placed before those two sides for them to respond to?
I think they received copies. Lisa, isn't that
I
true?
see.
They received copies of this, didn't they?
The applicant did, and I see
I don't
that
know.
Lewis Manka
Oh.
Marshall Creek LLC received this, but I don't see that the
Well,
appellee.
Oh,
wait a
I'm-
minute.
I'm sorry.
I think you served the parties with this, didn't you?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, the appellant and the appellees have been
Yes.
served
Okay,
copies.
So they have, and I haven't looked at they did, I believe, did they respond within
Well,
this packet?
Not yet.
Okay, but they may then.
They may.
Okay.
You have seen, Lisa sent copies of the notice around to the parties and attached the missing materials. Maybe you haven't seen that, but I saw it this morning. But apparently you sent it out yesterday.
Yes, I
Is
did.
that true? Okay.
I did
All
not
right.
copy the
So-
members.
So anyway, it did go to the parties. And, we'll just have to wait and see what we gave them basically 10 days to respond if they want
I
to.
did see that.
Okay? So we'll just see if they bring up anything else on the basis of that information.
Then that will simply be brought before us.
Yes.
At the time that we hear
Yes,
this
yes.
case. Okay.
That's an additional memoranda that they can file.
Right.
And that's presumably why you haven't seen the customary bench memo from Ms. Tucker, because she too is waiting to see if there's a response.
So, as you said, we don't need to shred this, but also right now, it's not part of the record and it's not before us.
But as you pointed out, it's salient information that's been presented and you've been notified of it.
Yes.
And so whether or not anybody else
Picks up on
supplements
it.
their record,
Yeah.
as the chair said, you have something in terms of making sure that the planning department has, and then also a piece of side information that although it's not part of the record, it's salient to this, and it may be salient to whatever you decide to do with the case as a whole.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Stewart, any additional comment regarding that?
No, that was going to be my question as to how long did we give them, and you answered
Okay,
that already.
the provision was that they have, I believe, 3 days to let the clerk's office know whether they wish to supplement it, and if so, they've got a week from then to do so.
Okay.
So we're talking about perhaps 10 days. Okay? All right, let's move on to the next item, and that is 6A2. We need to then reschedule the hearing date, and I had suggested that perhaps we could do it towards the end of this month or early in May. Not thinking about the possibility that there may be a runoff election, in which case this place is going to be busy, to say the least. And so the suggested dates that I had at the end of this month were either the 29th or the 30th. And so the very first thing we need to ask is, Mr. Adams and Mr. Stewart, are you available for both of those dates?
Yes,
Okay, Mr.
I just want to
Stewart.
reconfirm. Yes.
Okay, and I am too. So, those two dates are open. Then we need to address the issue to Ms. Tucker. First of all, will you be available then?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. And the next issue, of course, then is when do you think you can have your bench memo done?
Well, part of that, I suppose, will depend on what happens in that time period to supplement. So we anticipate that that deadline will be approximately 10 days from when the notice went out, and so that's the middle of the month. So if the board has it a week prior to the date, will that be sufficient? And then that gives
I
me
think that
another
would be
week
for
to
me.
do that, and I'm,
Mr. Adams, is that sufficient for you? All of us are nodding in the affirmative. So you would have the bench memo either the 22nd or the 23rd,
correct.
okay, by email as usual. And, all right, Lisa, is that okay are those two dates okay with you?
Those are great. Those are fine.
Okay, any preference for Wednesday versus Thursday?
Yeah, initially I thought Thursdays would be better for me, but it turns out that if you have them on Thursdays, then that kind of pushes everything past the weekend. So
Okay.
Wednesday is technically, I think, the best
You
time
would
for us to
prefer
hold.
Wednesday?
Right.
That's fine with
You don't care?
I have no
All right,
preference.
I have no preference. Why don't we make it April the 29th? Okay. So the continued hearing date in case number 2014-5, and the time for consideration of the appeal by this board is April 29, 2015 at 5:30. Okay, next, there is another exciting appeal right here, and that is called VOA Appeal Number 2015-1, and that is what's commonly referred to as the South Anchorage High School Stadium Improvement Case. And before we go any further, we need to talk about potential conflicts of interest. Mr. Adams, do you have any conflict in that particular case?
Yes, in the case for Planning and Zoning Commission, I represent the petitioner that have a direct conflict of interest.
Okay.
They are still, on occasion, a client of mine. That would definitely be a conflict.
Well, I would think so. Mr. Stewart?
I have no conflict.
Okay, and I can state for the record that I do not have any conflict either. So, that knocks you off the case, as it were, right then and there. And that then leaves the three of us other members, that is Mr. Stewart, Mr. Haxby, and myself. And the only thing we don't know is whether Mr. Haxby has a conflict. I don't want to speak for him, but I have my doubts that he does. But I think we will immediately notify him that he is on the panel, and he should let me know. And I know he is available. At least he said, oh no, this was a different one. I'm sorry, I take that back. So, the very first thing we need to do is, we first need to set a schedule for that. And then I will need to notify Mr. Haxby, because that's all we can do. It is clear that he is the only other member for this board, so it would be an appeal that would be heard by myself as chair, Mr. Stewart as vice chair, and Mr. Haxby. So then the question is, when can we do this? And now we need to turn again to Ms. Oh, Lisa, do you have a schedule for when things will be?
Yes, it's in your packet. It's going to be the last item right behind all those minutes.
Oh, right here.
Those are
Oh,
projected dates.
Thank you, I have not overlooked that. Okay, So it appears that barring any changes, the case will be briefed by the end of May. So then the question is, first of all, Ms. Tucker, are you planning to be on vacation or play your games or something
I am planning to take a vacation to visit my father, who's 98, and my thought, as you had requested that I do, is to identify somebody to be the backup for these, and so I would like to go ahead and pursue that with Chair Trainee and a solicitation.
So you don't
for
want to
the-
do that case at all?
Right. Right, I just don't, I'm not, yeah, I guess that would be the best way to,
Okay.
to.
Well, we will miss
send
you.
it. Yeah.
I
I don't
am-
want to do it if we can, if a substitute counsel can be accommodated. If the chair tells me no, they can't, even though I have that in my budget, then we'll do that. But I've sort of done my fair share of these recently, and I have a ton of assembly work that is getting
Yeah.
delayed.
Okay,
because
so
of
we
this.
do need to have other counsel.
Right.
All right. Now,
As
the
you
is-
forecasted, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
thank you for doing that.
Well, the issue is, who can we find, since our trustee substitute, Sally Cusco, is no longer available. I don't know if you're aware that she left private practice and is working for Alyeska Pipeline, I believe. So we need to find somebody else. And I can tell you that Ms. Tucker and I have talked about this before, and we haven't come up with any good prospect so far, but.
Well, I introduced you, and I had
Oh,
a
that's true,
person
that's
come
true.
here.
You had, there was a young lady here last time, you're absolutely correct.
Courtney
I had
Kitchen,
forgotten that.
and I've also invited Sally, and she knows of Courtney's work, and she agreed to talk to Courtney about the work here, so that Courtney would have a better understanding
Okay.
of that.
Okay.
Question,
Mhm.
is Sally Cusco definitely out of the picture from serving
Abs-
with us?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. She works full-time for Alyeska Pipeline.
Yeah, she's in-house
so-
counsel. She has a job that
Yeah.
is much like the one that I used to have when I first did work with her, and she was outside counsel.
So, that's, yes, and I apologize, you're absolutely right, there was a young lady here last time. And so that would be a possibility. I would, before we settle on this, however, I would like to have an opportunity to spend a little time with your proposed substitute, okay?
Absolutely.
And it would be good if there were more than just one name available, by the way. So
I think
we
so,
need to-
yes, I think so too.
We need to see what we can do. So, you and I should probably stay in touch on this and pursue that
I
in
think
the
that'd be
next
a great
couple of
idea.
weeks, okay? All right, so, having said all that, I would like to see if we can do this in June. And so, Mr. Stewart, what's your schedule? Is there time in June when you're not available? Let's
Yes.
start out by that.
Starting the 25th, I'm out through the 6th of July.
June 25 through July, what did you say, July 6th? Okay.
And,
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Chair, I would want, if the due date on here for the reply brief is not until the 25th of May, you want to make sure that you do give me or whoever else is replacing me sufficient time to prepare their work and to get it to you in advance of when you're going to have the hearing.
Well, I understand, and so the question is whether a month would be sufficient for that. We are looking at 5 weeks. If we were to schedule this for the 24th of June, that's exactly a month. Ms. Tucker, do you think that's sufficient or not?
I don't know when we've had the time, I've asked for a full 30 days, given my schedule to
Okay.
prepare things. But with outside counsel, you have the advantage of them accommodating just your schedule. I mean, more than, in my case, I have the assembly
Yeah,
and the whole thing of the I have a set schedule in addition to your schedule, whereas many outside counsel don't have the assembly schedule and can juggle their other clients around there. So I think that's if the 24th is doable, that would be
Okay. So then the next question is, Mr. Stewart, this is one day before you're leaving. Is that acceptable or not?
Yeah, I can make that work.
You could make that work?
It just
You won't-
has to be, I won't be able to participate in working on the minutes or anything, or the findings, unless we do that after the 6th of
Well,
July.
we could. Well, we could do that. How many days do you think you would need? If we were, for example, to meet on the 9th of July to consider those, how would that work for you?
That would give me enough time.
Okay. Now, okay, so tentatively we could say that we will hear this on June 24, and consider the findings and conclusions on July the 8th. That's a little short. That's not good. That doesn't give you enough time. July 9th. How would that be? Is that okay with you?
9th,
Yeah,
the 9th
July
works
9th.
better.
All right, so why don't we tentatively schedule those two dates? I will contact Mr. Haxby, and we will find out if Mr. Haxby is available for those dates. And if so, it will be the schedule for consideration of case 2015-1. Now, of course, you all recognize what that means to me, and that is that I can't leave during those days, but I guess that's the fate that falls on my shoulders as chair. So, we will simply have that. And if that date is not acceptable, we will need to call around and see what other date is available. I think that's simply how we are going to handle this, and we will do that by email, and I think that will be sufficient. We don't have to, it's simply a procedural matter. I will issue an order for a different date if that should become necessary. Okay. Anything else that we need to consider regarding that appeal? Okay. Next item on the agenda is reports. Are there any reports? Seeing no reports? Member comments? Anything you wish to bring up at this point? Ms. Tucker, anything you have?
no.
No? Lisa, anything
No.
you have? No? All right, and then audience participation. That's always the exciting part of these meetings, but I don't see anybody here, so I don't think we need to worry about that item any further. And if there is nothing further to come before the board, we are adjourned.